What's going on, everyone? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com, joined by co-host Dani WestCoast, here with another episode of the Morning Joint. Happy New Year to everyone. We're kicking off this new year, right? How you doing today, Dani? How'd you send in the New Year's? I know you said you were getting rained out down there in SoCal.
Yes, Happy New Year to everyone out there. I have a feeling it's going to be a really good year, actually. I rung in the New Year like I honestly didn't even make it to the countdown or till midnight. I fell asleep at 11:56 and I woke up at 12:04. So I think it's going to be a chill year. This year was a at-home year, so I want to get out a little bit more in 2023, go on a couple more adventures, do a couple more things like that, experience the cannabis culture in other places besides just California. So that is kind of my goal for 2023. But I think it's going to be a good year. Rung it in, getting rained out, falling asleep.
That's awesome, man. You know, I'm the dad. I'm the old dad. You should be on those moves. I was doing young stuff. I was up till almost 4 a.m. Turning up with other parents. At home though, wasn't out of the club or anything, but definitely a little out of character. I think the last couple years I probably have been in bed or at least in some PJs by midnight. But we turned it up. My son, my 4-year-old actually made it till midnight. I didn't think he would, but he made it till midnight, and he has some friends over. They were a little bit older, but he definitely right after midnight, he was like, basically like, I want to go to bed. He doesn't do that usually. Usually it's fighting bedtime. And he was like, man, even though there's still stuff going on, I'm trying to go hit the sheets.
That's so cute. Little kids are always like, how do you folks do this kind of thing?
Oh man. We were getting into it on New Year's Eve, man. But it's the end of the year. Usually, the end of the year usually brings in the recaps of the last year. The start of the year brings on the new year, new me, whether it's actually getting put into action or it's just the all talk and hype. We all know gym memberships start peaking this time of the year. People that end up going once or twice and never go again. But on the theme of that, it is definitely, whether it's hype or not, people are looking, it's that milestone to look back over the last year, kind of see what you did, see where we came from, and then kind of set course of what you want to do this year, whether it is goals or just some changes up. Everyone does it different, whether it's business or personal. I always like it simply. I do think it's like overhyped and talked about, and like the whole new year, new me, that shit definitely gets on my nerves because it's just a lot of like facade. But I do like the general theme that we're looking back, recapping, and then looking forward. So we got some recaps. Today. One of them, what we're going to kick off with, is the best weed. We did a list of the best weed or cannabis products out of the state of California. We got more recaps coming. So for those of you who don't know, we just spent the latter half of 2022 on our North American weed tour, flying and driving all over the country, looking at a lot of the best of the best in legal cannabis. And so in doing that, in a lean team, ideally we would have all this recap content about 2 to 3 weeks ago, but we've been puttering it out over the last week and we still got more in the tuck. But we did release a list. Joey J. Ping wrote it, of the best weed in California. There was some contributions beyond him, but anybody out there that takes opinions of this, bring it up with Joey, man. Don't bring it up with no, I'm just kidding. We'll stand by that. So we broke it down. I'm going to go over the categories. I'm not necessarily going to go over each individual win, but I'll run through the categories, and then I'll let Dani give her take on some of the notable products she saw, and then I'll give some of my insight as well. But some of the categories in this list, which the URL is in the description, is best rapper or celebrity weed, really, really fire indoor flower, favorite OG Kush. If we're talking about California, we got to pay homage to OG. Best and favorite exotic cuts, favorite hype brands, best and favorite mid-Z flower brands, best pre-rolls, best infused pre-rolls, best edibles, favorite vapes, best beverage, best and favorite rosin, best health and wellness brands and products, and notably dope brands with fire products. So just showing love to some other brands we know that killed it, that didn't necessarily make it any of those lists up above. Breeders killing the game, dopest packaging, best hardware for smoking, vaping, and dabbing, favorite dispensaries. So that's a lot of stuff. Without sticking you, Dani, to any sort of holding you to numbering it 1 through 10 or listing any categories, I'm just curious what was some of the best stuff you saw out of California cannabis in 2022?
Totally. I see Cam on here quite a bit actually in this write-up, and I would agree that they are putting out some really great strains and some really great selection. I am definitely a fan of Alien Labs also. I really like that I feel like they're a fire brand, but their price point is never too crazy. So I do like that about them. They're a little bit more accessible of a product as well. And then when we go to some more even affordable brands, I actually really like Lolo. I think they're a really fun brand. Some of their strain names, I mean, the Free Britney that they had, I was totally team Free Britney. So love that. Cannabiotics on here, originals. There's definitely, you guys got to check this article out because there are some really great features on here. I do also want to talk about one section called the best infused pre-rolls. Simply because infused pre-rolls have been such an issue as of late. We'll get into that a little bit later in today's episode too. But I also want to call out for the upcoming year, I think we're going to see a lot more hash holes. We've already been seeing so many of them, but I think because rosin is also on the rise more and more, we're going to see more hash hole products. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. I see Fidel's hash hole, LA Family Farms hash hole, and Cookies Diamond Blunts on there, as well as some Jeters. So I think we'll see more of those, but definitely a great selection on here. I think we're going to see obviously a rise in more rosin products. Yeah, check this article out. It has a great selection on here. Like I said, Cam, Alien Labs, definitely all fire. I like that there's even a section on best packaging because there
You
are
got
some really fun ones out there.
You got it. Yeah, you got to show love to, because for a minute it was like a lot of the best packaging was like a lot of booth flour and packaging. And now you're
Right.
getting people that are getting really creative with packaging and having some fire inside of it. So that
Yes.
whole it's what's in the bag counts, like shit, it's a cool bag and what's in it is definitely some cool smoke.
Agreed.
But I agree with you on the hash hole subject. I think that is absolutely blowing up, over the last few years, like through Instagram and social media, the big backwood trend, right? Like you have backwoods are pretty expensive compared to moving up from swishers or papers, right? So smoking woods is a little bit more, you gotta have a little bit more money. It's not crazy, but it's a little bit more money if you're smoking them on the regular than just smoking weed. And then when you're stuffing a whole eighth, especially designer weed, you have a blunt that's $80 to $100 inside that wood, and so that's been a big flex. I feel like as much as it is people do enjoy blunts, it's been this like flex thing, whether it's for the gram or in real life, it's this flex. Not everyone can roll woods, not everyone can roll big ones, especially good weed in there, right? This is a flex, and I think the hash hole is the progression in that. I'm starting to see people, which I'm for, because I'm, as much as I do smoke backwoods, I am like, man, we need to move away from the tobacco. Let's stick just to the tree. So move into the paper, but people are definitely rolling these crazy hash holes. They look dope with the donut. Obviously they're potent, and it's a flex, whether it's, your rolling skills or how exotic the flower is inside of there, how much money was spent on it. You know what I mean? It's becoming this kind of like progression of the flex, right? Of a more expensive and more difficult to roll product. But I'm here for it, man, because some of those hash holes, I'm not big on smoking them too much, but man, the flavor, when you match the rosin with the flower, the flavor is crazy.
Totally.
Some of my favorite weeds. So I contributed a little bit to this, it's a little bit to this list. I definitely checked out a lot of this stuff. We mentioned we're no strangers. We put the Marathon Cultivation and Marathon OG from Nipsey. We're big Nipsey fans over here. We've been smoking that since before they kind of went on the rec market. Always been a fan of that, so that's almost always making our list. RIP Nipsey. I don't know, it'd be hard to let go of that one. And it's just a good OG Kush. But some of the other ones on here that like, Danny, you mentioned Cam was killing it. I only took a couple trips to California and like the Hall of Flowers, but they always had a crazy lineup. Joey got the Sherbaccio from Alien Labs on here. I didn't have that one personally. Curlado Runts by Curco. I like that was one I really vouched for. I really like the Wosi Woe from Top Shelf Cultivation. Is just, again, it's been around for a while, but it's just always hitting. One of the ones that, two of the ones that I definitely are more than two, a couple of the ones I really push for on here, the V Power by Oak Fruitland. Absolutely love that strain. Love it. Love it. Love the team over there, Oak Fruitland as well. They're putting out absolute gas. The NV by Seven Leaves. I know some people like Seven Leaves. Some people, might not put them up that high, but I thought that NV strain was just absolutely, the flavor on it was just absolutely phenomenal. It's definitely that gelato hype realm. So if people want to knock it, I totally get that. But me personally, that was honestly, one of my favorite smokes all year. And then what potentially was my favorite smoke all year was the Sashimi by Laughing Gas. Had a couple different batches of it that have varied in quality, but the best one I got, which was not the best looking visual wise, but the smell and flavor on it, got it sometime in the mid-year, and it was, man, that was my hands down my favorite smoke all year. And we smoked a lot around the country. There was some stuff in Portland that we got out of Portland that definitely gave it a run for its money. We're talking about California, so I'm not going to highlight any of that on this one, but that Sashimi from Laughing Gas, Joey Diaz brand, that was absolutely nuts. And then the Jokers by Compound Genetics. I had some from at a compound tasting event. Some of, Chris had got some jars on the table. So I don't know if it was what people are getting at the stores or not, but man, that Joker straight from Compound was just absolutely nuts, man. So there's a lot of good weed out there. We did cover some edibles. We'll get into that in an article in a second, but there's a lot of good weed. And as Danny said, this article we put out, there is a lot of weed being mentioned because there was a lot of stuff out there and we tried a lot of it. And we aim to try what's good. So hopefully we're highlighting some stuff out there that you guys tried. If not, would love your feedback. Who did we forget? Who did we lose? What did we miss? What did we put in there that you think is absolutely terrible boof? Man, if you think we're just completely out of touch, I'd love to see all of that in the comments. You could shoot us an email, whether it's sending us some love and flowers or hate mail. I don't care. Just send it. Would love to be educated on what people out there are seeing that we think is doing is accurate and what you think we're not doing accurate. I'll honestly dive into and look at all that. But Danny, on the theme of recapping, there was a lot of news headlines over this last year. And you just recently put out a little recap of some of the top cannabis headlines. So I'm gonna pass the floor to yourself to cover some of that.
Yes, totally. And I do just want to quickly say, Compound Genetics, I will add, it's great to see them actually putting out flower. I've tried a couple of their strains and I have not been disappointed by any one of them. Plus their packaging is also really, really cool. It deserves a mention in the dopest packaging section, I'll say as well. But to take it to some headlines this year, actually cannabis becoming far more mentioned in mainstream media. So I did put out a little recap video, just putting out every single news headline that I believe every cannabis consumer needs to know to stay knowledgeable and to understand kind of the world that we are navigating as cannabis consumers. So two top headlines from the year were actually at a federal level. President Biden did one presidential proclamation and signed one very important cannabis bill. So the presidential proclamation was a pardoning of federal cannabis possession convictions. These were low-level federal convictions, which I will say there was some criticism regarding this pardon because that kind of crime really does not affect too many people. Rather, that kind of conviction does not really affect too many people at all. And the matter of actually pardoning people convicted for cannabis minor possessions is still at a state level if your state is still currently having having cannabis non-decriminalized. But this was a great step forward on a federal level towards cannabis decriminalization. The second thing that President Biden did this year was sign a bill called let's see what the name of it was. I forget here. The Medical Marijuana and Cannabidol Research Expansion Act. And I totally butchered the name of that, but that would be for CBD as well. So the Medical Marijuana Research Expansion Act. And this will open up the gateway to take away barriers for more medical cannabis research, which is really great right now. A lot of the major cannabis research that we have is it's still coming out, but a lot of it was based in the 70s, 80s, and it's based on a lot of research that was done over in Israel. So it'll be great to finally get some more pertinent cannabis research here. A couple other headlines I took on a more local level. So we talked about some cannabis testing labs being closed down this year. There were 3 cannabis testing labs that shut their doors this year, one of which was due to having their license revoked. I'm not 100% sure why their license was revoked. The DCC did not give us that information. And it is kind of interesting to see that lab that was closed down to license revocation, that was the one that actually most quietly closed down. A lot of people didn't know about this. There was really no mention of it. So it's kind of interesting how that works when you actually are closed down by the law. Sometimes you're able to shut your doors a little bit more silently than if you're a more active player. It's a little bit sad to see as well. We had some other lawsuits in the headlines this year with 3 different pre-roll brands being sued this year. These are independent lawsuits. We have 3 different brands being sued for the same exact reason, which was THC inflated potency numbers. I don't say just potency because potency refers to all of the cannabinoids that are being tested for, but this is specifically inflated THC potency for infused pre-rolls. 3 different brands, also kind of speaking to who does the accountability fall on? Is it the brands? Or is it the testing labs that provided the information? Or is it everyone who is considered a partner in that process? So that'll be really interesting to see how we're ruled on that one. We talked about it last week. Another lawsuit that made headlines was the Cushy Punch DCC lawsuit. This is one of the first big lawsuits that the DCC actually won. And again, I want to know where the money goes, but hopefully we will get some updates on that as well. Another headline that you may have seen recently in the past few weeks was Afro Man announcing his run for president. Again, I don't actually think he's going to win. He does have a controversial background. Some of the pillars he is running on are controversial, but again, haven't we all been told the American dream is you could be a person from anywhere, well, anywhere in the United States and, you know, run for president. So he's carrying out the American dream. So we, you know, I think that's kind of cool, albeit he does have somewhat of a controversial background. And he has some interesting pillars. I believe one of the pillars is to like legalize prostitution and things like that. So very interesting to see what will happen there. And that's just a couple of my cannabis headlines that were featured in the video. I do want to mention, obviously, another great one that we should look out for is Germany having legalized cannabis and the amount of cannabis research papers that have come out this year. There's been over 4,000 published cannabis research papers. These are scholarly research that has been done on a clinical and even academic level. So with that presidential bill being signed, we're going to see even more of that in the coming years. So very exciting stuff to watch out for. Again, you could catch me at Dani WestCoast on Instagram. I put out educational videos every single week. And that was just one of them. That was my recap, new content coming out this week.
Thanks for breaking it down. Definitely a lot happened last year, and I think the trend's going to continue as more of these states that have passed legalization are going to flip the recreational switch on, and we're going to see some of these other markets really push for it, whether we have some elections push for it or not. We're going to see, I think, a lot of advocacy on the ground floor in some of these states that haven't quite got with the times. You know, maybe Idaho and some of them will be a little bit slow, but some of these other states are starting to heat up. You know, we met some people in Vegas from Kentucky that were really pushing, and they were saying, you know, we're still a ways away, but the grassroots movement out there to push legalization is just growing day by day. And obviously seeing all these tax dollars trickle into all these other states, it's going to be hard for politicians to hold their ground on not providing more money for their constituents as time goes on. The next topic that go ahead, Dani.
I do also want to mention one topic that I mentioned briefly in the video that I think is important that we shed some light on today. And that is, I think we're also going to see a theme of employee treatment coming up in the coming year as when it comes to lawsuits and things like that due to an employee death taking place at a Trulieve facility. It was not in California. I'm not sure if the family has settled with Trulieve, but I know OSHA sued Trulieve, and Trulieve is to pay a minuscule $14,000 and some change. over the death of an employee. She was inhaling cannabis particles as she was packaging pre-rolls and rolling pre-rolls. She was not given proper PPE, had told her supervisors about the working conditions, and nothing was done. She later passed away due to complications resulting from all that particle inhalation. So I know definitely not on the same level, but there have been a couple of other cannabis brands here in California that have faced some scrutiny for employee treatment, mainly on the retail side. I have a couple posts about it on my LinkedIn if you want to check out further what I'm referring to. But I think we're going to see that in the coming year featured a little bit more in the headlines as well, employee treatment within the cannabis industry and some advocacy when it comes to that.
Safety on the manufacturing side, because that happened in Massachusetts, I believe. And I actually, when I was in Massachusetts on the North American Weed Tour, I was touring a bunch of facilities, and my guy Joseph, who runs Apothca, a vertically integrated company out there, when we were at their facility, he was talking about, I was walking through their manufacturing facility, and he was talking about all the ventilation that they had through the just moving air through there, the mask that he had employees wear when they were doing knock boxes and pre-rolls. And he had brought that up kind of before that had happened. He was like, something that I see, he said, something after running this business I foresee is like a lot of people who don't prioritize clean air and just proper safety precautions for employees. He's like, I think we're going to see a lot of breathing and lung related issues from people that work hands-on with cannabis. Because I had brought up that I have allergies, and while I smoke, it doesn't bother me. But if I spend too much time in grow facilities, I feel like this weight on my chest. And I've definitely have other friends who lifelong smokers, but then go work in a grow facility, and then 2 weeks later, like, are in the hospital because they can't breathe. And that's more an allergy. Like, hey, that person probably shouldn't work, in that capacity at all. But obviously some people that don't have that level of allergy that tells them initially that buildup over whether it is, yeast and mold, or it's just simply like resin. Right. And I think, like I said, we're seeing some comments. There's definitely some potentially some other sides to that story and other ones, but it definitely that theme and that topic of health and safety precautions for employees in manufacturing and growing is going to be a big one. So moving on to our next topic, while we're on the theme of the North American Weed Tour, like I said, we did spend a lot of this year traveling around the country, trying a lot of products. And so kind of how this works for people out there that don't know, when we used to do something called the West Coast Weed Tour. It's evolved to the North American Weed Tour. There's a lot of cups out there, things like that. Pay for play. Some certain people do reach out to us, get directly involved, and submit their products to work with us. Certain things are just people, we see comments from people that either, hey, 10 different people have commented this from this state, we should try that out, or people who we just can tell through social media or previous relationships that they know what they're talking about, recommend stuff. And then we physically just pull up to a lot of dispensaries and simply ask, what are the most popular products, and what, from whoever in here is a connoisseur, are the best products from their perspective. And so certain people reach out to us, but we also go to a lot of stores and pick a lot of brains of what we should try. We don't necessarily try everything in every single market, but edibles was an easy category for us to kind of compare side by side. Obviously, when you grow flower, there's so many different variables that go into it that can produce good flower to great flower to average flower. And when we're looking at East Coast, Midwest versus the West Coast, it's really hard to have anyone outside that's not touching the Pacific Ocean to put their name in the hat for producing the best flower. But when it comes to edibles and you're just using distillate, it's something that you can easily kind of manufacture regardless of the quality of raw flower. It was one of the first ones that we were able to recap. So just running through the list, what we thought, internally was the best edible in the country is Pioneer Square's Fruit Nom Nom. They're only available in Washington, our home state. So a lot of people out there might not have ever tried one, but these things are seriously fire. We have no affiliation with them. They did not pay a single dollar. I don't even know if they know we put them as the best this year, but I think we gave them the best last year. Absolutely just incredible edible. If you're ever in Washington, get the Pioneer Square's Fruit Nom Nom. They're these like bigger square gummies with like real pieces of fruit in them, and they just like my personal favorite is the watermelon kiwi. Like I literally cannot. I wish they made a non-infused like Costco size bag. I would eat those gummies every day, man. They are absolutely fire. Coming up second, Wild. Obviously, they're available in 9 states: Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Michigan, Nevada, Oklahoma, Illinois. I toured their headquarters in a little bit outside of Portland earlier in the North American Weed Tour. Saw how these were made, got to talk with their team and just understand their vision. Being one of those top cannabis companies in cannabis, not just edible, top cannabis companies across the country with how many states they're in and their sales volume. It's clear they're doing something right. And something I found unique is they're very operational focused. They get into states as an operator, as a license holder, rather than just licensing their products out so they can make sure it looks the same. And their packaging is great, but the way they display their packaging and the little like 5 or 6 flavor display. It's a very simple display. It's nothing crazy, but they have that same display in almost every store they're in every state. And that little touch that they don't sacrifice on, I think helps their brand just stand out and be cohesive and representative on a large scale level, while they also, again, are controlling from an operator standpoint. So they're able to consistently put these products out. Some people put them as like maybe a mid-level edible in terms of their favorite. I personally love them, man. The sour cherry and the huckleberry are my favorite. Dani, I'll let you interject. You've obviously had Wild. What are your thoughts on Wild?
Yes, I have obviously had Wild. And I really like that actually. So I made a video about multi-state operators, and some people I think forget that a small brand can also be a multi-state operator. And like you said, I really appreciate that they take the manufacturing process kind of into their own hands when they move into a new state. It's not a licensing effort. And that's great for a consumer, because if you're traveling, if you move, you still have access to the same lovely product that you had access to in the state before. So I think this is really great. Plus, brands like this who are doing it right and moving to other states are setting a really great precedent for other people to follow should they want to move and explore new markets, should they want to move their operations or expand to new markets. So definitely agree with you there. I'm really interested in the Pioneer Squares next time I'm up in Washington. I want to try those. It's a gummy, not a taffy.
No, it's a gummy. Yeah, the Pioneer Squares are like a gummy, but they're like a bigger, it's like maybe like almost the size of like 3 Starburst or something. It's a little bit bigger than kind of your traditional gummy. And they're good, man. I'm telling you, even my friends that aren't in the cannabis industry, I'll see them on Instagram post it, and I'm always like, you like, and they're like, bro, I cannot stop buying these.
You know what's funny too? I don't really smell weed around my condo complex, but I do see a lot of little Wild containers down in the trash can in the parking garage. So one of my neighbors is definitely a Wild fan. I'm not sure who, but they're definitely popular here in California.
I think for good reason. They're great. And then, one of our other favorite edibles that we made on here was the Detained gummies, again, out of California. Some of our preferred flavors were mango, pineapple, and guava. They're hash rosin infused gummies. Everything's kind of inspired by just flavors and colors and fruit from Thailand. So it's like these vibrant colors and flavors, but it's a little bit unique, being that, obviously pineapple isn't just strictly, exclusive to the country of Thailand, but they have just things that are inspired by Thai culture. Great edibles, and they're hash rosin infused. Next on the list was Betty's Eddies. They're in Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, Rhode Island, and Delaware. We had them in Massachusetts. It's more like a taffy. They brand it as a chew, but it's more, coming up from the West Coast. I'm a saltwater taffy, always ate that growing up. So it's kind of more in that lane of a taffy. The strawberry, cherry, and then their lemon agave sleep are great. But honestly, every single one, I've had multiple flavors. Some of the ones that aren't even available anymore. I personally really like them. They taste great, and great consistency. And then moving on, the Lost Farm live resin gummies from Kiva. They're available in California, Michigan, and Massachusetts. One of the unique things about these is they are live resin infused, and they pair the flavor with the strain. And so it's one of the edibles that does not hide from incorporating cannabis in it. Obviously, it's infused. The live resin is going to give you more of a full spectrum experience than just distillate, but they don't run from it. You're definitely going to eat these and get a little bit of taste of weed, but they're going to play off the weed flavor with the flavor of the gummy itself. And so it's just one of those unique products, edibles, that doesn't shy away. A lot of edibles try to hide and mask weed. This is one that fully embraces it and plays with that flavor. So it's not something, I reviewed some earlier, and I was like, I wouldn't. These wouldn't necessarily be my snacking edibles that I just want to snack on 100 of them. But if I'm just taking an edible to eat, it's definitely unique flavor profile to mix them. Coming up next, the Coast Cannabis Chocolate Bars out of Massachusetts, small family-run business. Preferred flavors that we like: s'mores, key lime pie, cookies and cream, almond, coconut, and sea salt. So these come into kind of three. They break their chocolate bars into three lines: milk chocolate, dark chocolate, and white chocolate. And then inside of each of those lines, they go different flavors. So white chocolate, you have your cookies and cream, you have your key lime pie, you have your birthday cake, and so forth across the different spectrums. So they kind of three lines, but then go unique flavors. They've been vending at Boston Cannabis Week the last 2 years we went. So you're able to go get these they break little squares that you can try of uninfused samples. And I will consistently, even though other places are giving out, Hershey's and Snickers and candy, I'm consistently going back to that Coast booth and sampling those. And then we've obviously sampled the infused ones, but they're a great edible. Another unique thing that we found was at the Mint Dispensary in Tempe, Arizona. Inside the dispensary, they have a hot kitchen, where they are making baked goods on site, and this is a recreationally compliant in Arizona. This is pretty unique compared to, I know that's not happening, I don't think anywhere in California. It's definitely not happening in Washington. But then they also have hot food like pasta, pizza, chicken wings, and you can get it made on site and then pick how much you want to infuse it with and pay per infusion, and it gets made there. They even have frozen infused take and bake pizza, and we reviewed that. And so even knowing that, you think the product could be total novelty 7-Eleven quality level pizza, and it's infused and it would still be cool. The pizza is actually good on top of it being infused. So that was one of the most unique things we had on the entire North America Weed Tour. And then rounding out our last two, we're sticking with the gummies, the High Burst gummies from Forefront Ventures, available in Washington, California, Massachusetts. Started up here in the home state of Washington through Northwest Cannabis Solutions, now through Forefronts, available in multiple markets. And then rounding out the sour assorted flavors from Space Gems in California. And so I know a lot of people probably looking at our list like, damn, that's a lot of gummies. I'm sorry, me and Joey worked on this list, and we're both some gummy eating motherfuckers, man. So we tried a lot of gummies, and that's clearly what's resonating in some of our favorites. So is there anything that you think that we missed on here that you would like to highlight in the edible category, Dani?
Kinda. So in the Lost Coast one, I actually really like their Starburst one more. I'm not sure if they have it labeled as a gummy or what, but it's more like a Starburst texture, and that is one of my favorite gummies. And then I saw it on the previous article, what was it called? The first article that we talked about, the best weed in California 2022. I saw it mentioned on there, the Papa and Barkley Relief chocolate bars. Oh my God. I got one in a gift bag at Emerald Cup, and I ate quite a few squares of it, not a ton, but I ate like my normal dosage of squares, and it just hit so nice. It kind of reinvigorated my liking of edibles, actually, the Papa and Barkley Relief chocolate bars. And then I will say also Sumo Snacks, and it's not just because I work there, but they're unique. They're the chips, and the 100 milligram bag, like when I eat like 3 handfuls, I am on the couch. Like, they're really effective. But I was honestly surprised at how effective they were. So those are a couple other things I recommend. Plus tinctures. I'm such a tincture fan because that's a low sugar, like practically 0 calorie option. And I'm always down to try something a little more healthy. So I do like Yummy Karma tinctures as well as Papa and Barkley tinctures. Again, Papa and Barkley products just like they hit. So I have to be careful with the relief tincture, to be honest with you.
That, honestly, the Sumo Snacks was one I wanted to add on there after we already published it. That's anytime music, weed, anything we're making best of lists, sometimes it's hard. Like, you write your initial, all right, I'm going to easily make a top 5, and you start writing like, oh, 6, now 7, now it's 8. And then you publish, and then you can, like, for weeks after, you're like, damn it, I forgot those. So that is one I will pay homage to. We were at a couple different Grasslands parties over this year that had Sumo Snacks, and I've had them other places, but it was always great snacking on them at those. And then your point on the tinctures, I'm big on the drink additives, like the lean type products, just to add to a drink. Being a parent, it's just nice to have something that's, odorless, super discreet. And you can kind of control your own dosage. If I only want a little bit of milligrams this time, or okay, my kid's about to sleep, I can pour up to 50, 60, 80 milligram, right? And get into non-dad relax mode, right? I'm a big fan of that. And so I'm not sure if we're putting out a beverage list exclusively, but there's definitely a couple beverages that we found, whether they're drink additives, tinctures, or beverages like standalone beverages that we found on the North American Weed Tour that are worth highlighting. So, but we got more recap. I know the 2023 started and we're already trying to forget last year, but we got more recap content on the way. Bear with us. Next up, I'm gonna run through these last two cannabis headlines real quick. But Market Run Delivery in LA is now carrying the RMR Legacy Smalls brand. So we have a quarter ounce of Smalls, $40 pre-tax, available via delivery at Market Run in the LA, Santa Ana area. Check that out. They've been a great partner of ours. We just wrote a little article showing love to them. They've definitely been one of our great delivery partners on the new endeavor in California cannabis. And then I covered it on one of my favorite weed that I reviewed in California. We did a review on the Envy strain from Seven Leaves. There's a link in the description. You can check that out on YouTube. Moving on to music, we'll run through these somewhat quick, but the top topic was Snoop Dogg, and there's a little bit of music and cannabis. We're bridging the gap here, but Snoop Dogg launches Death Row Cannabis. It kind of the announcement came out, and then the stuff was for sale a couple days later, so they clearly had this thing waiting with that Beyonce promotion, like I got an album dropping at midnight type thing, which I thought was unique for cannabis. Usually we see stuff hyped up over the course of time. But when you're talking about Snoop Dogg and the level of influence and platform he has, and I know they teamed up with the breeder was at AK, who's the head of cultivation at TRP Co. And I know they're launching this Death Row Cannabis through Cookies retailers. So they kind of had their whole supply chain ready for these news. But it's definitely unique packaging. Just curious kind of your thoughts on it, Danny. I know you saw the news. I don't know if you saw the product in the flesh yet, but just kind of curious your temperature on the Death Row Cannabis drop.
My temperature on it is pretty warm, actually. I'm liking this because I do think that there's only a couple of celebrities who are going to be respected out the gate when they drop a brand. Sometimes there's a little bit of back and forth, whether it's a cool thing or not. If when a celebrity drops a cannabis brand, mentioned earlier, like Joey Diaz's brand, it's fire. So people actually like it. Monochrome, Jay-Z's brand has been a little, up and down when it comes to what people think of it. So I think Snoop Dogg putting this out, I haven't heard anything negative from anyone out there. It's kind of been a damn how this has been a long time coming, more so of the feeling. And I think Cookies right now, in the same week, they also released news that they had a strain coming out with Erykah Badu. So I don't know what kind of Cookies is up to right now, but I'm really liking this kind of really strategic, thought out collaborations with well-respected artists. I want to see how this goes for Death Row Cannabis. I think it's great that he's giving homage to the record label rather than just calling it like Snoop Dogg Cannabis or something like that. So I think this is great personally. I do want to see the product in the flesh to kind of see how it lives up to everything. But honestly, I think Cookies puts out a lot of great strains. So I don't think that this would be anything other than some fantastic offerings. So we'll see how this one goes.
Yeah. I know when they reached out to us with the press release, I don't even think it had the strains listed that came out with the drop. So I'm curious what these, and even still, like you said, when it comes to Cookies, they're usually putting unique names on strains. So, and they don't always release the genetics. So I'm really curious to see what kind of genetics they're messing with, especially, they said a lot of stuff was handpicked by AK and Snoop. So I'm just kind of curious what the Dog Father's smoking on. Moving on into music news. So Taylor Hart, our editor and a veteran author for us over here, and literally one of the biggest ambassadors of Seattle music, in my opinion, unbiasedly. She's on the team, but she's just someone that I believe needs to be well respected in the Pacific Northwest hip hop community. She put out her list of the top 22 Pacific Northwest hip-hop releases from 2022. The links in there, I'm not going to run through all of them, but there's 22 albums from dope artists, super well represented, all over, not just Seattle, but Seattle, Portland, Tacoma, and kind of beyond out here. So if you guys are from the Pacific Northwest, definitely check that out. You might find some stuff you love, some people you never heard of. If you're not from the Pacific Northwest, we live out here on an island. We don't get a lot of infrastructure or light on what goes on up here. So go check that out. I guarantee there's some artists you've heard before on there, whether you know it or not, and definitely some artists on there that have worked with people you've heard. It's definitely great. There's a couple albums on there that I didn't see that I would have for sure put on my list, but Taylor listens to a lot more than me. She contributes every single year to the Seattle Times year-end recap, best albums that came out. Again, super well respected, and from not just myself, but the community as a whole. So great list. Definitely check that out. Next up on music news, Drake was apparently detained in Sweden. Some videos were going around on Instagram of him being kind of in cuffs or hauled off by police, and then he posted a video with it in there, but then they put out a comment saying he wasn't detained. So I'm not sure if it's for promotion. Was it in a music video? Was he detained and not arrested? Was he arrested? There was some rumors it was for weed. You know, Drake isn't the biggest weed smoker, but he talks about it. I don't even know if weed is like how legal it is or illegal it is in Sweden, but that was making some headlines. It was kind of hard to figure out what exactly happened, which is weird. You think the level of Drake, everyone should know about it, but at the same time, you know, he might be able to block it, or maybe again it's some promotional stuff and there's some mystique. I don't quite know. And then on our year-end recap continued, we had the Drops Media and RMR. We did the Droptop 2002 hip-hop recap and review. Looked at a lot of the best albums and songs released over 2022. So me, Joey, and Devon went live for a little bit, maybe like an hour and a half. So there's a long video, but we gave our insight on some of the best hip hop albums released in the last year. There was a lot there. So check that out if you're interested. And then last up on the hip hop news, man, 21 Savage just kind of trolling, said he wants to be frozen alive so he can live to 2121. And if you listen to 21 Savage, he's always saying 21. So apparently 2121 trying to live till 2121. I just thought that was kind of funny. You know, we'll see if Elon or someone like that can make it happen. But that's rounding out our news. Is there any topics, anything else tug at your heart that you feel like you got to share, Danny?
Oh my gosh, I just want to say, actually, in this link for the Drake information, they're showing some pictures of his house here in California, of his mansion, and oh my God, his house is crazy, you guys. Like, definitely scroll through this, mood board this for 2023, because they're showing, it's if you scroll down, they're showing some pictures of his house, and gonna have to add some of those to my vision board because some of this
he had the compound there. I don't know if you've seen his like estate that he built in Toronto too, but that's it looks like the fucking White House or something. It's nuts. It's a massive mansion. So this man got a lot of real estate, international real estate, I guess.
But one thing I do want to add about music news is it was really great to see SZA put out a new album this year. I had a chance to listen to it, and I mean, it's really hard to top Control for me, but it's really great to see her putting out some new music. And if you haven't taken a listen to it, definitely take a listen to her new album. And obviously, I was so sad this year as well. To hear about the tragic passing of Takeoff. Migos has been so influential to the music scene. I lived in Miami for a long time, so they were, coming out in Atlanta during that time. So I've been a fan of them for quite some years now. Watched them grow as artists, watched their music style be taken by other rappers, and just hearing so much music like that sound like Migos now on the radio. So that passing is totally tragic. I think I just saw on social media today that they're going to be putting out a new Takeoff album. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see. I got to fact check that. I just saw like one post about it on Instagram today. So that's my contribution to the end of the year music news.
I could see them coming out with a solo album. So him and Quavo, they did the duo album that was on it was on Joey's list, and I can't remember. We did a master list, and then we each did our own list. I can't remember. Definitely one of my favorite albums that came out this year. I don't know if I put it on my top 10 list, but it was great. And I see in the comments, Pusha T, Almost Dry, album of the year. That was definitely up there. We talked about that on the year-end review. But with that, that's the morning joint. We got a little bit of a long one to start off the year. Newsletter went out at 9 a.m. this morning. That should be in your inbox if you're subscribed. If not, reach out, info@respectmarine.com. We'll make sure you're tapped in there. And with that being said, man, we'll be back, next Monday. We might have some more content coming out, every single day of the week. But until then, we'll have enough live stream for next Monday's morning joint. Appreciate everyone for hanging out today.